first of all, you can check this out on www. People shouldn't say www anymore. I don't know why I do. It's out of habit. But MatthewPMBigelow.com. We're available on Podbean, and maybe this will be up on YouTube. We've yet to decide. And we're two sweaty gaijins in the basement.
If someone looks at what I am dressed in, they're going to say, some social justice warrior will say, cultural appropriation because I'm wearing jimbe, which is Japanese old summer wear.
How can you culturally appropriate if aren't you just culturally adopting?
Hey, but I am the authentic Caucasian Japanese nationalist, and I have a lot of serious, very right-wing friends. And if you're a social justice warrior, you complain what I wear, me and my buddies will come get you.
Yeah, you still got the samurai swords.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is the Matty B Files podcast, of course, and we are getting quite into it. Just before we get into it, though, I would like to congratulate Mickey Acorn. He threw a musical yesterday at What the Dickens. It went very well. He's a great performer, Mickey Acorn. He really knows how to sing. He writes cool tunes, and he gets...
What the Dickens? That's still in Ebisu? In Tokyo?
Yes, it's still in Ebisu.
That used to be an torture center before what became a neat Irish bar.
Yeah, I've heard about that. But before we get into I would love to talk to that because we have to talk about Om. This is Japan Month in Review for July 2018. Right. The musical was fantastic. It went very well. Could have been more people there. More people should have showed up. But it was a zombie musical. And if you're interested in the backstory, I did a podcast with him a few episodes ago. Just look for it. Just go to MatthewPMBigelow.com and scroll down. So, congratulations to them, and good for What the Dickens.
Good.
Sometimes What the Dickens gets really busy, and I can't really enjoy myself. I'm not 40, but I'm nearing 40, and sometimes I want to sit down and actually enjoy. But sometimes there's a lot of dancing going, which is fine. You know, that's their great business model. They're doing very well, and good for them. But it was great to have the chance to sit down and more relax in a seated environment.
I'm over 60, so I appreciate the sit-down part of things.
Sitting down this podcast. So now that we've this podcast often talks about What the Dickens in positive and negative ways.
I like the food. I've always liked the food.
The food is awesome, but what's this about how do you know it was a Ohm torture chamber?
Well, torture chamber, people just say that. It used to be actually run an Ohm Shinrikyo, which for those who don't know, is a former Japanese cult, was still around. And they had a place there. It was their place until they had their.
See, I've heard about this before. Actually, you're not the first person
right.
I've heard of this.
And this is what it's basic gossip that I've heard that I understand. So
what? Go on. What's the goss? Don't hold back on gossip.
That's all I just know. It's just
then what? And then what else do you know about the gossip?
That's about all I really know. I don't know any details.
Why are you alleging torture chambers when
that's what everyone says. But it probably wasn't really torture, but they. Of course, for people who know, they were a cult and they did weird things, and they would, they were into starvation, reduced food consumption, and working hard all the time, and in low sleep, and all that kind of stuff. And I've had a few friends who got involved with the Om.
What were they like?
They were trying to get on me, to be healthy food. The food is terrible.
What kind of food was their version of healthy food?
Very bland kind of stuff, And this is what cults do, because spices make you interested in things.
Yeah, they invigorate the mind.
So no spices
through the spirit of the palate,
and of course no sex, and a lot of work.
Could you imagine being in a Japanese cult and no sex?
Oh yeah. Well, of course the top guys had sex.
Yeah, they get all the sex.
And for those who don't know, the leader of the cult was recently executed. Finally.
Yes.
A bunch of them were just hung about a few weeks ago. And it's high time, I say. It's high time to hang.
High time to hang low. That's the first. We can get into that. This is from Japan Times, which is getting worse and worse as a news rag. It used to be just okay, but everything's gone so far social justice warrior. It's a new standard for press. but not a lot of people actually believe it. But this is the new story. Okay. Om Shinrikyo guru Shoko Asahara and 6 other cult members hanged for mass murder. Shoko Asahara, founder of the doomsday cult Om Shinrikyo and mastermind behind the deadly 1995 nerve gas attack in the Tokyo subway system, and a number of other horrific crimes in the 80s and 90s, was executed on Friday. Also confirmed were 6 other condemned Aum members. And that's about it.
Should I go into a little more things I do know about the Aum?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Actually, because of them and their attack is why Ishihara Shintaro never became the governor of Tokyo. This is what I understand.
He did become Shintaro.
I mean, the prime minister. Excuse me, prime minister.
Yeah. He did become the governor.
He was the governor of Tokyo.
Yes, for a number of years.
His youngest son was a member. And the youngest son painted a portrait of Ishihara Asahara Shoko. And I think it worked like this. They were useful politically. And I remember many years back.
A lot of smart people joined Aum. They had some of the top graduates from Tokyo University and bio researchers and physicists and nuclear scientists.
There was a lot of stuff about LDP corruption going on and all this kind of thing. And I remember I lived in Koenji at the time, Asagaya at the time, actually.
Where we are now.
And I saw Asahara Shoko speaking from the station. He had this huge sound truck, which was just painted white. And you could see it was quickly painted white. It came from somewhere. And they had all these sound trucks, and they're campaigning in 3 wards in Tokyo, Nakano, Shibuya, and Suginami. And they had, their followers were 3,000 at the time, and he really thought he was going to win.
There's a lot of fringe culture in Suginami, actually.
Right. His job, though, was to detract attention from the LDP's massive corruption. And at that time, Kanemaru Shin, he wasn't the prime minister, but he was trying to be the prime minister, a very, very prominent LDP member. And I remember filming inside his house. I didn't film it, but I saw it. A film inside his house, and showed all these boxes, cardboard boxes in this huge room, which were stuffed with cash. So
I've always wanted to be that dude.
You want to be that dude, huh?
Not the actual cult member, but just a guy with shoe boxes full of cash in his apartment.
When Asahara was arrested, though, after the attack on the subway attack, he was found in a room inside the compound out there, which was
in
filled
Guma
with cash.
Prefecture or wherever it was?
In Yamanashi.
Yamanashi, yeah.
Which was filled with cash. And they made it into a Gulliver theme park afterwards. That whole compound was made into a Gulliver theme park, which never really went well economically. I filmed there as an actor. I filmed there several times because it kind of looked like a European town, so we used it as a film location every so often, but the place is now just nothing. Anyway, that was that cult, and they were used by the government to distract attention. But my thing is, I think Asahara Shoko really thought he had a chance to be elected and get in the government, and he got mad when he didn't. And his attack on the government was revenge. He didn't know his
turned his followers. He went down the dark path.
He went down the dark path. And he knew a lot about what's going on in the government because he was associated with him. His job was to be the idiot. And the LDP could say, we may be corrupt, but we're not stupid idiots like them standing in front of the station with papier-mâché masks of Asahara Shoko. That was his job. But
so what do you think about the hanging then?
Well, the thing is, he did attack normal people. He killed a number of people. He, for those of you who don't know, they created Sarin Gas, which is a poison gas, and put it in plastic containers, very light plastic containers, which were punctured by sharpened umbrellas on the subway. And he killed, I don't know, I think it's 15-something people, 20 people,
but the
and
amount
hundreds of others.
Yeah, and the injured people, like it was a nerve agent, so you're hundreds of
others, and
nerves,
a lot of permanent damage
fucked.
and so forth. It was not a joke.
Including vision, shaking, memory, like
and
not
I had
good.
A discussion with a person.
It wasn't like a scar from an explosion, right? It's permanent nerve damage.
I had a discussion with one believer, a kind of guy was kind of involved, one of my friends, and I kind of went at this point, and I says, look, they're not up and up. They're not, because if you are a communist and a Maoist, at least you try to help the people. I can understand running into the police station with a bomb and blowing it up in the police station. But doing it on the subway, you're attacking the normal populace. And even as a communist, this is not really, ideally what they would do.
Yeah. Ideally, with communism, you would legislate it.
Or, I could understand attacking a Japanese army site or a Japanese, police station.
Sure, a clear and defined enemy.
Right. But on the subway, that's normal people. Not all of them are government officials and so forth. There was a lot of normal, and I ride those subways all the time. So do you.
Yeah.
We all do.
I was riding one today.
Yes. Well, that was.
I was riding on a subway that was targeted by the sarin gas attacks.
Which one was that?
Marunouchi.
The Marunouchi. That's right. So this neighborhood, yes, it was.
A lot of those train lines kind of go underneath political centers in Tokyo, and I think that's why.
It was all centered Kasamigaseki Station, which was the Chiyoda, the Marunouchi, the Hibiya, and I think there's one other.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're done. They're cremated.
There was no riot, apparently, by the followers. There were a lot of followers in the area, but their followers now only number 1,500 or something like that. Small. But there's still groups of them hanging on, doing yoga and so forth like that.
Letters written by executed Aum cult members reflect regret and desire to live.
Well, yeah, most people would,
My feelings of apology towards the victims and their families have never weakened in the 23 years since everything came to light, said Hayakawa, who was arrested in 1995 and sentenced to death in 2009. At the time, I thought I was fighting for truth and salvation, but all I got from resorting to terrorism was pain and sorrow, he wrote on his letters sent to a civic group.
Yes.
I'm sure that's how he said it.
Well, but he made a bad choice. What can you say? When I was a young man, I joined the Marines, and you can't say that everything America does is good. Of course, a lot of it's bad. But, I fought for the state. And when you fight for some individual like that who's doing things, and then you end up killing people. And there was the lawyer. I really got upset about the lawyer and his family were
Who's
attacked.
lawyer?
This is a lawyer who was helping people trying to get out of the Aum.
Yeah.
And it was about 6 months or a year before the gas attack. They broke into his house and injected him and his wife and an infant with poison.
Yeah.
Killed him.
Yeah.
And apparently one of them said that the child was begging him, don't kill my baby, don't kill my baby. And they still killed the baby right in front of her. Now that's cold.
That's pretty cold, man.
Okay,
Unlike this heat wave.
I'm a former United States Marine.
Yeah.
I've done naval intelligence work. I work with other American intelligence agencies. I've met even Japanese gangsters and worked with them. The American intelligence world does.
Sure.
Army did. The
of
Army.
course,
the
yeah.
Army. And there's a code there. You don't go out killing women and kids. You kill a guy. That's one thing. Kill a guy. Okay. You don't want to kill his wife and baby. You don't. It's just
sets a bad precedent.
Well,
an even worse precedent.
It's just you don't. It's not done.
Right. So they're gone. And I should stop. I'm trying to get my microphone skills better. I was at. So speaking of what the Dickens and speaking of cults, I went through. I had a little social media controversy this weekend, and you joined in on it.
I did. Oh, I did, didn't I?
See, I'm getting really sick of all of the motherfuckers that are shitting on everybody's party right now. So I've known some other people that have done similar things, but I posted a link to Paul Joseph Watson video called "The Truth About Migration."
Yes.
And you can like InfoWars, you can't not like them or hate them or whatever. I've been personally listening to Alex Jones, not every day, but on and off since 2002. So I'm quite familiar with the guy. Like it's 2018 right now. So
I've been listening for a while.
Yeah, so 16 years, and I usually tune in for like a few weeks, and then I leave for about a year and a half. Then I go back or I might tune in a couple of times. So, anyways, just trying to establish that I'm not a huge supporter. Why can you go to CNN but not InfoWars? Why can you go to InfoWars but not CNN? And not even to compare these two things. But anyways, to get to the controversy. So I posted this thing, and immediately an editor from Bloomberg, Dave McCrombs, I think his name is, some hack journalist, he starts telling me why I'm a racist moron for even posting the video. And this happened almost immediately after I posted it. And then he sends me a whole bunch of links to other articles from criminal organizations like Snopes and Fox Business. I guess because I posted InfoWars, I must like Fox or something like that, or maybe he's trying to be balanced. And he posts some things to Bloomberg, which he works for. And then he demands that I review all of his links and tell him why I'm wrong. Basically, that's what he wants me to do. And it's this weird cult right now.
In the communist days, it's called criticism, self-criticism. And when I was intelligence agent, I was involved in that in Japan. And I would sit through these things. And the guys are forced to confess and all this kind of stuff, their crimes. And it's like the most petty things. And I'm like, oh. And
it's a cult.
It's a cult.
Going back to the Ohm thing. And he was telling me things like, I said to him, I think you're a disgrace to journalism, and I alleged all these things, but he didn't even reply to me. He just insisted that I watch like a half hour of videos that he kind of selected, and you try to rebut me if you can. And my response these days is, listen, you can't just march onto my social media page and give me homework. I'm not your fucking student. Like, what's this idea of saying, oh, you posted something and I watched it, now I'm going to link to a bunch of things on your site, and now you have to give me an essay? Fuck you. And this is the whole thing about the left these days. And I didn't really want to talk about these types of things when I started the podcast, but it's getting to the point where as soon as you post something or want to talk about something, a whole bunch of people come out of the mist and just
say you can't say
that. You can't think that. You're wrong for saying that. You're wrong for linking to that. You are a racist moron. Now, if he said something like, wow, I don't really like this guy, Paul Joseph Watson. The issues he raised, I find it kind of weird that he would think this and this. That's coming to the discussion with a shred of civility. But the fact that a Bloomberg editor, Dave McCombs, the hack, decided to just call me a racist moron right out of the gate.
It's so easy for people to call people a Nazi. And for those of you who don't know, hello out there.
Hello, Dave, you hack.
I'm an ethnic German.
You useless. You're basically the equivalent of an assistant manager of a Foot Locker in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay,
you're in the Asian Bureau for a reason.
I'm born in the United States, but I'm a royal German. I'm a von.
Yes.
I'm a von of Germany. And among Germans, there's kind of a thing of pride and everything. And people look sometimes, I hate when people use the word Nazi so lightly. And they use the word Holocaust. And I saw a thing by a Jewish guy.
They call black conservatives coons.
And somebody in America is telling what's happening with immigration, for example. It's a Holocaust. And this guy was a survivor of the camps. And he said, you can no way use that word to describe...
Talk about cultural appropriation.
Oh, yeah. But the left just throws these words. You're a racist. You're a Nazi. You're all this kind of thing. And these are people, they think they're doing well, but they have very little life experience. They've never faced real hardship in their lives. They've never faced serious things. Now, on the right, in a large sense, a lot of the right, and I grew up lower middle class.
The right these days is very different from the neocons and the W. Bushes from the 90s and the 2000s.
Right.
That was an infiltration camp as far as I can see, where both camps wanted war and no borders to make money off of cheap labor and missiles.
That's right. That's right. And I sent you a link, which I don't know if you've read yet, but this is a really amazing interview of this is a university professor, and he was called, he studies collapse like I do, and he was being paid half his annual salary. And he come to this very secluded location and give a speech. And he thought there's going to be 100 people there or something like this, and blah, blah, blah. Turned to be 5. Very rich hedge fund manager types. The kind of people who have helped destroy our society with their money games. And they didn't want to hear a speech. They all had their own question, which was, the collapse is coming, and money won't mean anything. So how do we control the security people who guard our compounds where we live? This is their only thing.
Because when big tech turns off the what's it called? The tap, the bandwidth tap. How are you going to control your artificial intelligence monitoring surveillance systems?
How are they going to control the guards that protect their houses where they live? This is the thing. And they're thinking about secret codes to the food catch or something like this. And all he could say was treat them like family. Well, a state is an entity to command loyalty. I joined the Marines out of loyalty to the United States of America. I didn't expect, well, I'm going to get paid, of course, but I didn't expect to get certain rewards or benefits or anything like that. Well, it's nice, you know, but I felt a duty to protect the United States of America because that's the country I grew up in. It's where I was born, et cetera, et cetera. These guys, of course, they're just mercenaries. These security guards hiding, they're being paid well. And then the hedge funds, they understand, well,
sure,
money...
it's not an exchange of loyalty. It's an exchange of time for money.
And in the future where money means nothing anymore, which is the future they've created.
And it's fast approaching.
Fast approaching. And this is the left is cooperating with people like that. They don't know it.
It's a liberal world order. It's the no borders, no country, no borders policy, which is for me, people that are waging war on the world. When people say refugees welcome, I think there should be refugee policy. It's not an issue. It's not an issue of feelings. It's an issue of policy.
Right.
And I've had other people, and it depends on their English background, because this no borders, no nations, the liberal world order is spreading
right
through information channels, and it's spreading through language. Do you know the photophone?
No.
Photophone was a communication tool invented by Alexander Graham Bell in the late 1800s. And it's used today for li-fi, which is light fidelity, the ability to transfer information through a modulating light beam.
Okay.
And it looks like a beam of light. And you can't even tell it's modulating. It's modulating so quickly. But you can modulate it, and then you can send data on the modulation waves from one point to another point. So you can effectively spread information on the back of a source technology. Okay. And I think that's what's happening with English these days. Is that these movements, these political socialist movements, the liberal world order is spreading through the algorithms of Facebook, and it's spreading through social approval on social media. And the more that you approve, the more positive feedback you get in terms of dopamine hits. And the more you criticize this, the more people get angry at you because it's not in the feedback loop. And so in a very short period of time, I see it's like a zombie. It's a zombie invasion of people more and more succumbing to the approval addiction of saying the right thing that gets you the right feedback on social media, whether you realize it or not. Right. There are some people that are going and getting like hundreds of thousands of likes, but then there are also some people that just want to post something. Right. So when I post my thing about social, about Paul Joseph Watson, that goes against the positive feedback loop.
And of course, Mr. Watson himself, he's for the left, he's one of the devils incarnate.
Yeah, but he's a very like I think he's probably a little too conservative, or I'm not sure if he's.
I don't go with everything he says, but I go with a lot of what he says.
Well, I can understand his point, and he makes good points.
Right.
You know, but mass migration, it worked at one point in time. Does it work at another point in time? I'm not sure.
Right.
But anyways, I think that a lot of this brainwashing that we're seeing is being done through the social media and the iPhone technology. And if you've ever read anything by Gustave Le Bon, who is a French philosopher who did a lot of travel in the late 1800s, early 1900s, he analyzed crowd behavior and how crowds behave in certain ways where the subconsciousness of a group takes over, and sort of how the cultural substrate becomes an
interesting thing. Interesting on that.
Yes.
Interesting thing on that. 25 years ago, I lived in New York City for 2 years.
Yes.
And I worked in Japanese restaurants.
Yes.
And we had this Japanese restaurant. We would open from like 11. Lunch was like 11 to 2:30. And we always had a massive rush. Now, you would think all that long period of time, people could come in staged hours. But people would show up at either 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. They would not balance out.
Sure. And the lunch crowd.
No, wait a minute. But how do we're in downtown Manhattan? How do all these people know when to come all together? But they did.
Yeah.
And I called it the herd mentality. It was like in the movie Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner and the buffalo hunt scene. That was lunch. You're running around, all this kind of stuff. And 12 o'clock, if it's 12:01, 12:05, there's no one there. Me and the waiters were all looking at each other. Yep, it's going to be 1. It's going to be 1. And we knew. And 1 is going to be the rush. It's either at 12 or it's at 1. But it wasn't spread out. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a crowd behavior. So I think that the one thing that big tech is doing very well these days is going above nation states and then creating a crowd mentality in nation states, across nation states. And of course, the phone is always in our pocket, meaning that we're always part of a crowd. And people that engage in I don't really engage in social media via smartphone technology, very rarely, but a lot of people do. And so they're a whole bunch of people, millions of people at any given time all across the world are not imposing, but implanting their subconscious crowd mentality into social media. And this is creating a very emotional, reactionary substrate within modern society.
Corporations are using for profit.
It's good for some advertising.
However, they've made a fatal mistake, which is in my book, and that's not in Japan yet, in America. Okay.
Which book?
My latest one. When I talk about,
is it published yet?
Oh yeah, it was published last year.
Which one? What's the title? Plug the book.
The English title, is Second Civil War: Battle for America.
Yeah.
What's the Japanese title? They always use that, my publisher does.
Plastic bag warning.
Plastic bag warning.
Anyways.
Okay, I will post it on the site.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes.
And I write about the current conflict in America, the right side, the left side, and all these who is who and who is supporting who. But on the right, why Trump got elected is basically because of the existence of an armed militia in the United States of America. And they did not feel that the army would resist them. In fact, if Clinton got elected, they were threatening to march on Washington. This is the right. They cannot live in the present society created by leftists and corporate people.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that these people are horribly underrepresented in the American technological revolution.
And this is where,
except in areas like blockchain or cryptocurrencies.
And this is where they've made a serious mistake. The people of the left, the corporate people, they just money. And you see the NRA and so forth, it's all, and people selling guns, that's another just corporate people. They've ignored it. And now they find out there's an armed body that doesn't like them and is becoming politically aware. The right is becoming politically aware.
Very much so. Thanks to the exact same technology we're talking about. Things like podcasts, which give people in countryside areas or rural areas access to 3-hour programs on history, 4-hour programs on social economics. These people are wandering around in their increasingly automated environments with more and more access to freedom of technology. Now, and university students and left centers of cities are increasingly receiving poorer education and worse secondary education and not as useful information in the terms of studies.
Can I say something about Japan?
So there's this radical shift in education going on right now, and that's right. Well, yeah. Okay, to bring it back to Japan, I would like to say this is called Japan Month in Review. So the reason why I'm talking about this right now is because all of these trends are now sucking into me at the moment via social media, and also I was helping out an international organization with some dictations, and some of the women there that could speak English very well were coming up to me and they're going, "Yeah, I'd like to tell Trump something, and so
so many people in Japan hate Donald Trump.
So that's the educational aspect. But I also teach a lot of people who approach English from more of an engineering perspective, and these people that don't go through the liberal arts speak English very well, but the tones that they use are also very different. So this creep, this tech creep, and this fascist liberalism that is encroaching is coming into Japan now. It's on its way.
There's a thing. At Japan today, I saw a few days. I forget the professor's name. A professor of Rikyo University. He said he's made in Nakano Ward in Tokyo. Nakano Ward. I still say Nakano Ward. I don't say city like this. It's a ward. It's a ward.
Like a borough or arrondissement.
A shelter for LGBT people, because in America, 40% of LGBT are homeless. And the comments were interesting. There's a thing in the comments that was really interesting. Some foreigner, wrote that the reason that 40% of homeless consider them LGBT, a lot of the guys are gay prostitutes to get money.
Right, so they're registered as homeless.
Right, and they're registered as gay, but they're not really naturally gay. But the whole thing, America has this problem, so Japan should have this problem, so we should do something about it in Japan.
The pronouns are being introduced in some universities too, in Japan.
Oh, yes. And you can cross-dress and so forth like that, and you're transgender and all this kind of stuff. And I'm addressing
which is fine if you really are, but the politicalization of it and the fact that it's less than 1% of the population.
It's 0.03%.
Yeah.
This is natural of transgenderism, and it's a mental disorder. It is a mental disorder.
It could be mental. It could also be natural. I did some research into. Some people say in Thailand they're so respectful to the trans people. It's part of their culture. It's like you look into it. It's the reason why trans people are trans is because they were such horrible pieces of shit in a previous life that they were trans in this life. They were recreated as trans people and should be left alone because they're atoning for some really fucked up shit that they did in their previous life. So,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's what study always tells you.
Well, you can be open about it, but just do 5 minutes of research and you can find some shit. So it's coming to Japan, and that's why I'm saying it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, because it's a hair that is split ad infinitum and it never gets resolved, and it just focuses on the most minor topics.
There are a lot of people in Japan.
And tells me to take too much of my time to address these points when all I want to do is make podcasts, make music, work hard, have a few drinks, and be a creative individual. But it's increasingly more difficult because when I try to share my information, people just come out and start calling me, from Bloomberg, racist morons.
Hello, you can call me anything you want, and yes, I will.
You piece of shit media corporation called Bloomberg. We're doing more than what Bloomberg does in an hour with just 2 microphones and a fucking karaoke booth. Mm-hmm. You would not get this type of information out of Bloomberg.
And the thing is, these people are creating all these social difficulties and problems. They don't have an army. You don't have an army. We do. We have like real guns. Come on, guys. Be smart. Be a little more smart.
I'm just on my own. But I'm fortifying.
Well, what I mean by the army is eventually they're creating so many social problems
with information
that the army has to step in. And just on your blog, on your link today, I put 4 or 5 links. It's about Sweden, and I started talking about Sweden.
The Swedish no-go zones don't exist according to
some people,
to Bloomberg.
However, the Swedish army is being revitalized because the police can't deal with it.
And I've talked to a member of the Swedish military, a lieutenant or something like that.
A lieutenant colonel, you said.
And who was saying it's a problem, and the military might be going in to take care of it. That's from the Swedish military,
right?
And that's not from Bloomberg, who's just looking at tweets all day. They're not even allowed to leave their desks. They're monitored on cameras.
All right. You know, I watched a video of the police in a situation in Sweden where they were losing control of what sort of was a small thing and escalated. And they're just too nice.
That's true, yeah.
You have to be, to deal with that kind of thing, you need a lot more force.
It's a policy, and policy is enforcement.
And it's left-wing stuff. Left-wing politicians don't want to admit they've made a mistake. The Tommy Robinson case in Great Britain is a certain thing. In Germany, it's been hidden. And there was some talk that Angela Merkel would lose her position because of this. Finally, she's kind of saying, well, we're going to make a camp for some immigrants. in America like this whole thing is in America. It's all the children are
being ripped away from their parents and thrown into cages.
You want to figure?
With no evidence.
80% of the children that come to the United States illegally aren't coming with their parents.
Yeah, they're coming with coyotes and rapists and gang members.
There is a huge...
Okay, of course, some people are coming with parents, but it's not a black and white situation.
And the ones that do, often, they're all arrested and faced with deportation. The parents won't claim the children back. Why? Because then the United States is obligated to keep them and care for them. And that means that in the future, they can be granted some kind of a state to stay in the United States, and the parents then could say, well, I'm the parent. I should legally be able to come to the United States and stay with my child. This is, it's like an anchor child.
Yeah,
and
in the future.
All right, liberals can't imagine poor people, how terribly they live, and how desperate they are. My wife came up with a story of a Japanese...
I'm pro-migration, by the way.
A Japanese
but I'm just not the rationale that is being issued with
an
from
NGO
the left
person
these
in
days.
Africa. An NGO person in Africa.
Yeah.
And this person was driving a car, and they hit a child, and killed him.
Yeah.
And my God, I killed someone's child. I should pay a lot of money. And what someone who'd been in Africa a long time says, please, 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 don't pay any more than 250,000 yen, which is about $2,500 US, right?
Yeah.
And well, why? I killed someone's child. I should pay maybe 10 million yen or something. No, if you do that, every time they see a Japanese car come by, they're going to throw a kid out. They can make a kid at any time. But in countries like that, there's really no hope. There's no
human resources, man. HR department.
And they see a foreigner, I can make a kid anytime. Throw out the 6-year-old. And then liberals have a very hard idea of understanding a mindset like that.
Right, because they're just poor people trying to make a better life for themselves, and they're braving the tough weather, and they're
braving a lot. Yes, they are braving a lot.
But they're just these people that want to come here and have a better life, and that's why we're Nazis.
That's why is that? Is because the United States
fuck this way of thinking.
These people coming in the United States, by the way, across from Mexico, they're not Mexicans. They're not Mexicans. They all come from Central America. The Central American states.
You mean even worse than Mexicans?
Well, the Central American states have been totally fucked up by U.S. corporate interests, and
they've never had good government to begin with. Let's be honest. Israel, made from scratch, one of the most advanced countries in the world. Japan, nuclear bombed twice, one of the most advanced countries in the world. China, opium addicted for 100 years, one of the most advanced countries in the world. Why don't those countries ever make anything worthwhile that doesn't turn to absolute garbage? Why not?
Yeah,
you used to have pyramids. What happened? I don't know. What's up with that?
Well, civilizations rise and fall, and sometimes they just disappear.
The Nazis bombed London. Dresden was reduced to ashes. Tens of millions, about 100 million people died with Mao. Bounced right back, baby. Bounced right back.
China.
So why do those countries? Why Venezuela, the most oil, one of the highest amounts of gasoline, petroleum, oil, resource-rich, one of the top 5 in the world.
Right.
Can't hold it together. Why?
Yeah.
Why? And it's an honest question.
It's an honest question.
When I think about it, it's like, well, why? And then Venezuela's falling apart. All those people are going to come. Anyways, this doesn't really have to do with Japan, but we can change it too. The amount of... Did you have anything to add, by the way, Max, about what we're just talking about?
Oh, go where you're going.
Because the idea of all of these people, migrants, economic migrants, shifting towards more northern territories, we also have... this is from the news, which is dubious, but it reports what it's supposed to. By 2025, Abe's government is reportedly considering letting in as many as 500,000 relatively low-skilled laborers to work in 5 industrial sectors that have been suffering from an acute labor shortage, namely in the construction, agricultural, nursing, hotel, and shipbuilding industries. but some 500,000 is not enough at all. Quote, some people who don't know about the reality of the Japanese economy must have just made up that figure. Yoshio Kimura, chairman of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party Special Committee on Issues Related to Foreign Workers, said.
Now, there's another thing that they're ignoring. It's been hot in Japan, hasn't it? It's been hot. We're going to have massive starvation very soon.
In Japan?
Everywhere in the world. No, not just Japan. Everywhere in the world.
No, we got technology. Anyways,
I'm sorry. Okay,
go with it. So
okay,
go with it.
When you say technology, a lot of Americans look at technology like it's some kind of god, and it's going to save us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. No. And what I'm seeing with depopulation for Japan is a blessing. It's a blessing. Yeah, we will have a lower number of people and manage to maintain our civilization, which America cannot. America is facing a huge crisis in California because of global warming, because of climate change. And you thought I was right. It's going to say it doesn't exist. Yes, it does exist. I write about it. I write about it in my blog a lot. I haven't put in a book yet, but I put it in my blog. California is going massive desert. Did you know that in the last, 4 or 5 months, there's a new law in California that you cannot shower and do laundry in the same day because they've hit drought again. In the last major drought in California, they came within about 6 to 7 months of massive evacuation of the state. 70% evacuation. This is what people who know about it know. 70% of the population would have to be evacuated from California. And then there's suddenly a huge amount of rain. And everyone tells me I'm a fool. The thing is...
That rain's dangerous.
That's a huge amount, all of a sudden. And when you go into such extremes, this is a scary thing.
Well, it produces a lot of short-term vegetation, which then dries up, which then burns.
Also, the last huge drought was 5 years. Now, but they've been getting longer and longer. I've been watching this for years. It's a pattern. They've been getting longer and longer. And the next one we can expect to last for 5 or 6 or 7 years. Now, California could probably survive. They've got water in the reservoirs. They can survive a 2 or 3 year drought. They're not going to survive 5 years anymore. They're not going to survive 6 or 7.
And there's a lot of dumb fucking Californians out there.
Oh, there are. I have friends. And I try and tell them about this, and they're like, oh, we have a water turtle, and my pet, and it's like, well, we might have to make him into a desert turtle.
I have these solar panels that extract moisture from the atmosphere and produce clean drinking water. Those exist.
All right, but what happens when social disorder collapses and people, your neighbors, understand that? They're coming to you for water. All of them.
Yeah, they're going to get a drone, fly up to see who has the solar panels.
And they're going to be carrying guns and say, hey, you got water. We need water. And your whole neighborhood does that. You're the one guy in the neighborhood who has it. Ooh, that's...
Well, how does this apply to... What do you think... you know what? So there's some issues where I agree with you and I disagree with you.
Okay.
The coming civil war, which is kind of happening in the form of an information war at the moment in America.
Right.
You predicted that. I didn't believe you at the time, but it's kind of happening.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes I wonder about the extinction of starvation. I'm wondering if we're still going to go there.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. See, that's where I'm going to say I'm not casting my die across that Rubicon,
What's happening in California and in the West in general, American West in general, it's predictable that it's all turned to massive desert like Sahara. It's always been arid.
Yes.
And yes, humans have altered the climate. And I'm going to say something really horrible.
Good.
There is a possibility for humanity to survive, but for that, America must die.
What do you mean by America must die?
They won't limit cars. They won't limit things. They won't limit how they live. They won't try and really live with the environment. Parts per million, we're not at 450. 450 is the level that it can't be changed back.
Parts per million what?
Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Okay.
And I just checked it a few days ago. It's like 408 or something. It's getting close to 450 though. 450 is level where we can't possibly go back. However, I'm not a trained scientist. However, I do think that if a major civilization disappeared, the rest of humanity could survive. I see two countries as surviving: Japan and Russia. Survive relatively intact. Relatively, we're going to take hits. We just had massive torrential rains in Japan, which killed, 300 people?
Yeah, 200, 300 people.
Yes. And in Japan, we've been living not wisely.
A lot of those people had, a lot of those city governments had initiatives to build up anti-flooding measures, but didn't go through with it.
They didn't go through with them, and people expand the suburbs. People want a nice house. Everyone wants a house. I want to have a house with some land, and so they expand into areas. Japan's a mountainous country. There's very little flat land, and they expand into places, and they call it. I'll go in English here. The Leafy Dale, but the name before actually was Hell Valley. Okay. And why was it called Hell Valley? Because occasionally it would really flood. And this has been ignored. And there's a guy I know from my part-time job wedding business who saw his house on NHK. His house was like up to the roof in water. And he had a piano there and all like that. And he's a musician.
And he was like, damn you Nazi NHK.
Well, he's a musician, And
I saw it on NHK.
Musicians don't make money, and
Nazis burn houses.
The guy was shocked, The guy was shocked, and his family. They're all okay. Everyone survived, but the house is gone.
Yeah,
and all okay. They got the property, but try and resell that property.
Yeah, you're pretty fucked. But what do you think of this initiative to bring the 500,000 low-skilled
out of their minds? These people who make this kind of idea are looking at models that are based on constant growth. And that's what we need, constant growth. No, what we're happening is contraction. Contraction on a major scale. This is what's going to happen in the U.S., it's going to happen in Japan. In Japan, with a lower birth rate and lowering population, yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was intestinal gases caused by massive consumption of alcohol. Well, going farther now.
Not massive, light.
Still.
Reasonable consumption.
So they're assuming an economic model that's built on constant expansion, which is what Americans teach. And this is what a lot of people in the academic world in Japan, we should follow America. But it's a failure. It's failing massively.
Western America.
It's failing massively. What we have to do now is find ways to survive. They say we need all these workers because they always put out all the kaigo. Kaigo is Japanese for caring for elderly and disabled people. We need these people. Foreigners are not going to do that. They're going to come to Japan, and if we give them visas to be out in the countryside where there's few people and take care of the old folks, they get here, they're going to run to the cities where they can get more money as prostitutes or
just even in whatever field that they want to work in. They can live an exciting life.
Exactly. People, they're not going to seriously...
I remember when I moved to Tokyo, my initial company put me into a residential area, and I was like, nah, I'm just going to move. I want to be in Tokyo. And I moved right away. I was
what residence? Where was
I was in a place called Keio Yumuri Rando.
Oh, I know the place.
Which is just it was the exact same place as I came from Canada. It was a network of houses with a convenience store on the corner.
Yeah.
And I came from this, and I don't want to come to Tokyo and live like this.
Right.
So I moved immediately to a denser population with more like the Tokyo vibe.
And also, another thing is
unapologetically as well, right?
I've lived in Japan for 44 years, and I've worked at many professions in Japan as a Japanese. There's a Japanese work ethic which is very serious. And
it's pretty tough to emulate.
Giving this to foreigners is very hard to understand. Foreigners have a very hard time with it. And foreigners always keep saying the same things. Oh, but I'm from such and such country, and this is how we do it in our country. No. In Japan, you're supposed to do it like this. In Japan, you're supposed to do it like this. And in various professions I did, working with foreigners was a really serious problem. They just wouldn't. oh, but you wanted me, you wanted a foreigner, so this is what you get. I was told that several times.
Yeah. It's pretty arrogant.
It's pretty arrogant.
I really try to adapt and adopt and whatever company or whatever. I'm not always in Japanese situations, but I always try to read the air. I don't try to be KY.
Well, I was in the TV film business. I was in the construction business. I worked in 7 years in Japanese construction. And there was prejudice sometimes. I remember a guy, Obayashigumi, he didn't like
Sometimes
me.
I kind of like prejudice. It's like, I know where I stand with that guy for sure.
All right, in any place, everyone's not going to love you. This is, and when liberals talk about microaggressions, and stuff like this, and come on, it's a human
As
world.
you're lifting bags of concrete. And I deserve a safe space. And you're like walking with concrete in the rain.
And that location, how I dealt with it, someone else saw me and he said, I want to hire you. Well, I said, I'm worth such and such group, it has to be okay with him. And he hired me. And what I got to do was build sewer pipe. And the first thing to do is sewer pipe. It's like 2.5 feet wide concrete pipes I'm guiding into the ground. And it's getting that trench. And I get in the trench and I sank up to my balls in mud. And I have to guide the pipe in. And you smash your fingers every time because you're guiding the pipe into the other pipe. I'm like, what the fuck are they using concrete? Why can't it be plastic? Because they're going to tear the place apart in 2 years. It's just it was a whole. I built a post office in Harajuku. I built the pipes, the sewer systems, and it was hilariously fun. And you guide that next pipe in, and then you climb out, and you're coated in mud. And then you go over the next position and jump in again. And you're going to sink back up your balls in mud. Why is it so muddy down there? I loved it. It was great fun.
Wow. We should have equality in there, too, There should be 50% transgender people working in the mud. Notice how they never advocate for those jobs?
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Regarding... So, where you... maybe disagree with me would be on the aspects of tech. Mm-hmm. I think that technology can and probably will solve these problems that we're talking about here today. And this has to do with the declining population. I don't really see a need to import 500,000 low-skilled laborers. No. A lot of the Japanese convenience stores are manned by foreigners. I don't really care that much, to be honest. It's just like, as long as they understand what I want, which is very minimal.
That's not always the case.
You're right.
There's a lot of complaints.
Yes, okay. Things get complex really quickly in Japan. Like when you need to suddenly fill out a tax form or do some sort of governmental request through a convenience store, because Japan is that convenient. If you're someone from Vietnam, you're probably not familiar too much on Japanese tax laws.
For people overseas, living in Japan, Japanese people have expectations that are very high. When you go into a place as a customer, I want this kind of service, that kind of service, and foreigners just don't understand this.
Yeah. And Japanese people expect to receive it, but they also expect to give it.
Right.
But so let's just consider this possibility. With the increasing amount of technology, for example, using robots in agriculture, where you could take a drone, fly it above a farm, and with sensors scan your agricultural landscape and get data back of where the moisture is, where the moisture is not, what crops are doing well, what crops are not doing well.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Okay, and then you can send a relatively small amount of people to go and solve those problems immediately. Some sort of other robots are also being introduced agriculturally for pesticide control, where via computer vision, the robot understands the difference by a degree of 90%, 80 to 90%, of what is the weed and what is the plant, and can apply directly pesticides to the weed. So instead of spraying or crop dusting an entire farm, which leads to 80% of the chemicals used not landing where they need to be. Robotics can solve those problems, and they are solving those problems right now. So there is the issue of too many young people concentrating in the cities. But what if you would have computer scientists allocated into rural areas that get the use of drones and robots to help control and harvest and maintain Japanese farms? So instead of managing a team of 50 or 60 low-skilled workers who you never know what they're going to do, you could have a team of 10 to 12 robots with parts that are relatively easy to replace, managing and harvesting and analyzing farming conditions or factory conditions. And this can apply to parts, computer parts, car parts. The technology is a substrate. I love the word substrate. And that way, instead of all of these engineers congregating in major technological companies and often reduced to taking minutes for meetings, they could be outsourced or placed in rural Japan, managing the farms with the latest technology, improving food quality and management with automation, and instead of relying on millions of people to come in with low-level skills.
If any country can do that, it's Japan. However, as far as labor goes, one of my major themes is collapse of America, which means a lot more Japanese people are going to be unemployed in international business and so forth.
Sure. So the things that I'm talking about right now would be domestic.
If we need Japanese labor, what I'm saying is we can use unemployed Japanese and move them to the countryside. Unemployed Japanese and move them to the countryside.
Sure.
And make it like it's going to have to be semi-government ordered. A lot of people aren't going to want to go. I have actually a friend whose sister does that in Iwate Prefecture, which for you who don't know is northern Japan. And
it's all right.
She had
pretty
problems.
fucking boring up there.
And she's had problems with that.
I've been there. It's nothing. It's
boring.
It's tough. It's tough.
If you
and old. People are old. The average age is like 60 years old. Anyway, sorry. Please continue.
But if you've lost your job, things are going to change. America is not going to exist in its present form anymore. It's going to change radically. And the kind of international trade we have is going to very graphically change. So,
that's why we're, yes.
And this would repopulate a lot of rural villages. I'm sorry, you're going to have to go up there and live, and you're not going to like it. Too bad, but you'll eat. You will eat. And this is what I guarantee people. You will eat. Especially people on the farm eat. People on the farm eat.
Yeah.
Food is not going to be very prevalent and available in the future. We have these huge international systems, which Japan and transport systems, and mass production food, which can no longer be maintained. And anyone who thinks so is dreaming. Sorry. Dreaming. America is changing the desert. 25% of American agricultural production comes from California.
Yeah.
That cannot be maintained.
No, probably not.
And which means in Japan, we have a food sufficiency rate of like 39%. Although rice, I understand, is about 100%.
Rice is 100%, and I think we're getting better. But we still rely on a lot of meat and things like that.
And Donald Trump is selling meat in the people. And in the local supermarkets, my wife tells me she's trying to find Aussie beef. We don't eat American beef. We don't. We eat Aussie or Japanese.
Yeah.
Japanese is expensive. It's really good.
It's really expensive. It's like $13 100 grams sometimes, eh?
Yes, it is.
That's nuts.
Well, I tell you what, in the future, Japanese people, we're not a really beef-eating tradition country. We'll just get along without it.
Yeah.
And on occasion have it as a luxury. American beef disappears. And American beef, I don't trust it because there's too many hormones. There's too many. I've seen the videos of cows that go really weird.
Yeah.
Really weird cows.
Yeah, they got weird shit.
Yes.
So, thinking about Japan, Max, July in review. We have the Aum Shinrikyo. We have the flooding. We have the heat wave. What do you think is the takeaway from a Japanese perspective, focusing on Japan for July 2018? Over to you.
Well, we lost something like 250, 300 people. And I come from Western Japan. It's my original place in Japan is Yamaguchi Prefecture near Hiroshima. A lot of flooding there. And people live in expanding suburbs into the mountains and so forth. But massive rain. This is massive. This is global warming. This is global warming. Massive rain. And
41 degrees in Tokyo today, in Saitama, I should say.
And it's getting worse. It's getting worse. You know, and I read things in the news like...
I'm not a big global warming guy, by the way.
Farmer Yamada, you know, he goes out to check his fields, you know, and he falls over dead. It's just too hot.
Cooked alive in his own fields.
For one of my jobs, I have to take my daily temperature when I go in for a wedding business, you know, okay. 36.2 and something like that. When it's over that, it's over your body temperature. You walk around and do something, you can't lose heat. So it builds up in your body. And normality, well, years ago I was in Thailand. And Thai farmers, I was in the countryside for a short time, a couple of weeks. But people they siesta. They didn't have air conditioning. Thai is a poor country. But they would just, you know, in the shade, they'd have all these hammocks laid out, and everybody's just laying there and doing nothing. Like at 2 o'clock or 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon. It's just too hot. Too hot. We're going to have to adapt. Japan's going to have to adapt to that. We're going to have to adapt to that with, we got huge heat. And we're going to also have to adapt to the fact that we're going to have weather events like this massive rain. It's going to come every year.
So the governments should get off their asses and prepare instead of making resolutions and waiting, kicking the can down the road.
Very unfortunately, as this weather pressure system moved in, the LDP had a massive party as the rain started falling in the western Japan, and it doesn't look good for that.
Yeah.
We're going to have to prepare people who live in mountainous areas, which is a lot. Japan is like
landslides.
Landslides, and we're in a different place than we were a few years ago.
I think so.
And it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse.
Well, I'm gonna respectfully, partially agree, because it's not that I don't believe in climate change. I'm just wondering what's causing it. For me, the takeaway from July 2018 would be fuck Bloomberg. and you know what? Those people that just reach out and say Nazi, the gloves are off. It's time to fight back. It's just social media bullshit, but the fact that these people claim to be somehow righteous while calling people like me Nazi, well, you know what? I'm kind of sick of that. It's time to stop. And in addition, the fact that these tropes exist within major companies like Bloomberg also signify how deeply the media class is separating itself from the regular Joe.
They're in a certain world. And I'll say this. You guys watch out. Someday a trooper is going to bear down your door, and he's going to come with an AK-47 or an M16, depending.
How does it feel to be irrelevant? How does that sound?
How does it feel to suddenly be staring at a gun barrel? It's going to happen. It's going to happen to them. They are creating situations where people suffer. People are going to react, and they're going to come in armed.
By the way, one of the guys that accused me of being a Nazi was on the podcast. He was in a band. He's in a band, a good band, by the way, called Immigration Unit.
Oh.
And one of their members is from Venezuela. And he left Venezuela in a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air type moment when his mom sent him to Switzerland to lead a better life. And he's the exact example of what we're talking about. But they're all good dudes. But just don't call someone a Nazi just because they post a Paul Joseph Watson article. Jesus Christ.
I admire Genghis Khan.
That's a sideways turn.
Yeah, but he was a hard man, and there's hard times coming, and only hard people can deal with it. And I always look at it that all these problems come, but somebody's going to come to me and say, "Well, please help us solve the problem. Really, you want me to solve the problem? You really want me to solve the problem?" And a lot of people are going to die.
I wonder, you know what? Because I've been talking a lot about big tech and how much I hate the cultural attitude. I work in big tech, but
Okay.
I'm talking about the social aspect of big tech, which is very poisonous. But the technology, I think, is going to exist. That's going to give a lot of people a lot of interesting capabilities to solve problems.
I am a very basic person, and of course I came up through the Marines. So I would like to give people a chance, but you're going to have to follow very stringent rules and fight hard to do your best. And I had a lot of bad experience with foreigners in Japan when I was working in the film, working with foreigners. And actually, I was over them.
Yeah, me too. Some of the worst managers all the worst managers I've had were foreigners. My Japanese managers are awesome.
They would demand this, they would demand that. They want rights.
They're awesome.
I should get this. I should have that. And no. You don't understand. We're facing a situation when everyone's not going to make it. Everyone's going to make it. Simply, being born is not a God-given right to survival. Now, it has been for a long time, and people have gotten used to that. It's going to change very fast.
Yeah.
It's going to change very fast, and not everyone's going to make it. And if you start screaming and yelling, and I'm a former Marine, I'm going to put you outside the survival sphere.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you outside.
Yeah. You're not in my group.
Or if you keep screaming and yelling, I'll take off my pistol and shoot you.
Whoa.
Yes.
You don't have a pistol in Japan, do you?
No. But I do have a lot of friends who do.
In Japan?
Well, Army.
All right.
And
do you talk to your Army friends about these types of immigration policy?
Yes.
And I want to kind of finish up the podcast pretty quickly.
Right.
So, how would you to finish the podcast? How would you summarize the way that because you're deep into Japanese things?
Yes.
Based on what you were involved in your Japanese circles, not friendships or drinking or whatever, but military and speaking and politically, because that's where your books are published in.
Well,
based on the conversations that we're kind of having today, when you think about your Japanese compatriots that you associate with, what are they thinking about these kinds of topics?
They don't speak about it, but they think about it.
And what do they think?
Along with me. I'm especially strong in the Army and Navy. I have fans. They don't speak about it. They don't come up and say it. There's no like organization that says we should do something, but a lot of people thinking about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people think about it, both in the Army and the Navy. I have a lot of Army and Navy friends. They are thinking about it. And I'm a civilian. I can say whatever I want. I say they're the force that can do something about it. No one's saying anything back to me about it. They look at me and they all nod their heads. They don't answer. They look at me and they nod their heads. Because Japan, the situation in the military is very, very little difficult. I would say we can trust the Japanese Army and Navy and Air Force.
Yeah, I've taught them. I know some of them as well. All right. Well, and that's why I like having you on the podcast, Max. Some people say, "Oh, he's a dangerous guy," but I often say,
"I'm sweet and nice and gosh."
I know, but we get into these views and things like that. But you are published. You have a few books, and you are involved within this aspect of Japanese culture, and so. That's why I love having you on the podcast, because I try to have as many different people. Like, this is the most diverse podcast there is in Japan. Without a doubt. I've had Muslims on, nuclear physicists on, nuclear physicists,
Interesting crowd.
Just whoever. It's a great time to be alive and to use this technology to spread information. Unlike the fucks at Bloomberg. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks, Max.
Thank you, everybody.
Peace.
Hey. See you next time.